People, a real estate podcast. Let's begin. What's going on, beautiful people of the Bay, beautiful people around the world? It's your man, Carlos Rojas here, your real estate agent with Frank, the bank owner of Lincoln Lending. And today we have a special guest, Frank.
That's right. We have none other than Mr. Lee Pearlman, counsel, attorney extraordinaire from Denmon Pearlman. Lee, we've been friends now for a couple years, and he's not only one of the most trustworthy attorneys in town, but he's just a great guy, easy to talk to.
Stop.
I blush. Not bad looking, but in the room with Carlos and I'd say, maybe third place. I don't know.
I'm not what I used to be. I'll take third.
Isn't there a song about you weren't what you once was or something?
I'm as good as I'm going to be, though.
As good as good. Yeah, there you go.
But I'm sure your man got good history.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I always like to joke around my hair. Bro, you still got amazing hair. Like, what's going on here? You got any secrets?
Genetics. I'm not
Just
tall,
good DNA.
but I have hair.
Oh, what we rub that on? Genetics?
Yeah,
Is that what we do?
That's it.
Yeah, that's all you got to do.
Interesting.
So Lee's here to talk about the squatters laws and a couple other of cool, interesting things that Desantis has signed into law. But, because we're a real estate podcast, this is coming up a lot, right, Carlos?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So as you guys can see, this is Lee's website right here. And if you could just give us a little bit of introduction of yourself, what do you do for people here in the Bay Area? You are located here in the Bay Area, right?
Absolutely. We have 5 offices in the Tampa area.
5 offices. That's amazing.
Yeah, we've got 11 lawyers in my firm. I oversee our criminal division. I also do personal injury litigation as well, the trial work. So as I said, I run our criminal division, everything from death penalty down to misdemeanor, DUI, everything in between. Our largest practice area is personal injury. We do a lot of litigation and trial work on personal injury, and those are our main areas of focus. We do family law and estate planning as well, but I do the criminal stuff because it's sexy and fun, right?
You enjoy that? You enjoy that job?
I love it. I'm a broken toy. I'm not right. So
isn't every lawyer a little broken?
Some are more.
Same with mortgage guys and realtors, I gotta say.
Yeah.
I don't know who belongs at the bottom of the sea first. It's one of us.
Yeah, it's lawyers. It's
lawyers.
But yeah, no. So that's what I do. My wife does family law, and she's also running for judge right now. So vote for Nicole Pearlman.
There you go.
She's running for circuit court spot in Pasco, Pinellas, and she's much smarter than I am and will be an amazing judge. So
that's pretty awesome, man. Yeah. So your wife is an attorney as well?
Yes.
So how did you guys meet? I got to ask now.
We were state attorneys. We were prosecutors together.
Okay.
So
did you guys ever face each other or anything like that?
No, we did a lot of trial. I think we were 7-0 as prosecutors. We never lost a trial together. And, sparks fly, late nights, and one thing leads to another. And 2 kids later, I don't know how many years anymore. Yeah. I think
Wait, is it cheaper to keep her?
10-year anniversary. Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you're married to a divorce attorney, I know.
The most I'm ever in love is when she'll do like the child support guidelines, just so you know. I'm more in love now than ever. Yeah,
she's like, I recalculated this morning.
Oh, that's so
every
cool,
quarter.
Every quarter.
It's fine. Keeps the sparks alive.
Yeah. It sure does. Sparks is right.
Yeah, I can only imagine what the household looks like with all that. That's pretty cool, man. What else? Tell me a little bit about the beginnings. Like, what made you become a lawyer, if I may ask?
I always wanted to be one. My dad wanted me to be one. And
was it in the family at all? So you're first generation lawyer?
My dad was, he owned a bedding manufacturing company in Pennsylvania. And
wow.
They had like 12 retail stores. There's a big manufacturing plant. I worked every summer in that goddamn manufacturing. I've made more beds than you can imagine.
Man.
Bed bugs?
Right. Worked up, did sales, all that stuff. And I just wanted to do trial work. You watch the shows, you watch the movies.
Yeah.
I can't watch any movie; they're all terrible. But
My Cousin Vinny, come on.
They're great. That's a great movie, but like legally, most of that doesn't happen.
No.
But you like the drama of it. And I like to argue, and I'm a dramatic person.
So I'll tell you what, I know there's a saying out there between a lot of people that, lawyers are like, hard to deal with, or they're too expensive or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Let me tell you, I got the utmost respect for lawyers. Every attorney that I've at least gotten in contact with in terms of certain things that I needed, they were always very respectful, very understanding of the law and all of that. And just seeing trials, seeing important things happen, watching a really good attorney versus one that probably sucks or something like that, it's really entertaining, especially when it comes to like
it's wild, the disparity, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I've done over 215 criminal jury trials.
Wow.
Like I said, death penalty, I've done it, mandatory lives, I've done it all, and nothing gets you going like that. Like if you're not up for those things, like you have no pulse. You're dead.
What would you say was like your biggest or most important case, or the one that taught you the most?
I don't know if it was my biggest or most important, but the one that I'm friends to this day with. I had a client who was accused of sexually touching a minor, and I believed he didn't do it.
Okay.
The circumstances made no sense, but there was DNA. His DNA was found in an area on the child that there shouldn't be DNA. And it was wild. And he was military, special forces, great guy, super religious. He was only there for 45 seconds to a minute, unsupervised, per all the testimony. But the state went full speed, and it was mandatory life.
No.
And we pieced it together, and we were able to figure out, like, his son had been there that whole day, unsupervised with the kid. Son had walked in on a sexual act with mom and dad like a week earlier. Long story short, they can't distinguish. At that point, they couldn't distinguish between the paternal DNA lines. They couldn't say, like, you or your dad are the different people.
Right.
It's just in that line. So we were like, no. Victim's parents left her unsupervised with my client's son. He goes to pick son up, walks upstairs to gets son, again, alone for maybe a minute, and comes out. You know, my whole argument, the most hardened child molester in the world isn't running up for a minute.
No.
The state wouldn't come off. I mean, it was life. It was a hour and a half not guilty. To this day, he and I are great friends. I believe unequivocally in his innocence, but this stuff happens. Wow. I have people, I genuinely am like, they didn't do it.
I can only imagine what it feels like to be accused of something like that you didn't do. You know, that is crazy, man.
Because the kid goes, so the mom comes in, asks her what's wrong. He's like, says the name, lick my tata. Well, dad's name and kid's name are real similar too.
Yeah.
And the victim's like 6 with 101 degree fever.
Oh, wow.
But you're sitting there, like, you're waiting for that jury to come back. And I did I lit that trial up. And you're like, if I did this wrong, he's going to die in prison.
Right.
That's it. He was, in his early 30s.
So what happened to the son? Like, what happens there? Like,
He was 7.
Oh, is a 7 and a 6-year-old?
Yeah. It was one of these like doctor scenarios where they weren't supervised and one kid did something.
So at the end, it was the parents' fault. You know, it could happen to anybody's kids, right?
Right.
You know?
And I should have called the Times before that, but they did a great piece on him afterwards. Because I was like, I got to rehabilitate you. You get this charge. It doesn't matter.
That's where you need Travis Horn.
No, I met him.
No.
He was on one of my juries.
Was he really?
We got to be friends because he was on one of my juries, leaving the scene with death in Tampa. I tried that case 3 times. We won the 3rd time. But that's how he was on my 2nd jury, and he's the reason she didn't get convicted.
Wow.
He was like, they didn't prove
incredible.
We'll have him on a show one day. That's another guy to introduce.
Yeah, but she was beautiful nurse, really smart girl. Her windshield explodes. She doesn't know why. Stops, looks. I have to hire an expert. Whole thing is, did she know she hit someone and drove away or not? 3 jurors to win that case. 3 juries, 3 trials. Wow. Because if you hang a jury, you go again.
Yeah.
The state wouldn't negotiate.
This is crazy.
That's crazy, man.
I want to be an attorney now.
I could do this.
I'll tell you what.
So
I always wanted to be an attorney, but the school got me, man. How many years of school did you do?
I graduated in 2.5 from law school. So you got your 4. I was Army Reserve too, so I did a long.
You had a little extra.
Yeah,
that's good experience right there.
Right, but
thank you for your service.
Yeah, thanks. It was wild. But law school, it's just so expensive.
Yeah.
Like it's cost prohibitive. It's worse now than it ever was. And I have all these kids that are interns and they're going to go to law. I'm like, if you don't know, don't do it. Do it.
Yeah.
I have so many. The burnout rate is so high, and lawyers don't make the money they used to.
Right.
At least at certain levels, right? Like. And I tell them, I'm like, you're not making $100,000 for
right
your
away.
first like 3-5 years.
Public defender and make $50,000.
Right.
Yeah. $100,000, you mean a year?
A year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not making anywhere near that.
Yeah, because you come in and you go in right under somebody probably, right?
But even the civil firms, if you're top 10 in your class, different animal, you get these higher end jobs. But like insurance defense work, these guys aren't making a ton of money right off the bat. Like it takes you years, and then you got to build a book. No one tells you in law school. You got to bring business in. You want to make real money. People got to come.
Oh wait, you got to be a businessman?
Huh. Who would have thought?
Yeah,
maybe that helps. But they don't tell you any of these things. So it's just like, well, I've learned the law. Neat. Who's going to hire you to defend them or represent them or protect them or sue on their behalf? Like,
so you're not telling me it's not like Suits, right? It's not just clean and like.
Here's what I've never done. I've never gone with a manila envelope and laid it on the table. That's the answer. Ha! No. No, it doesn't work like that. And no one gives a shit. Like, see you in court. Like, it's up to a jury.
Law and Order isn't real?
I can't watch Law and Order anymore. I used to love it. Can't do it.
Listen, I can't watch flipping shows or any of those real estate shows. I get home and my wife has that crap on, and I'm like, turn it off. Turn it off now. Because they show you, like, right, it costs $4,600 to flip this $1 million house. You can do it too.
You know,
Like,
I got
so easy.
I got an email from somebody that does those shows.
Yeah.
They wanted to show a house that I was putting up for sale, and it was a flipped house. And something about it felt so weird. I had to sign a bunch of papers before the showing and everything. You could just tell it's all made up, in a lot of ways. I'd rather watch a YouTuber that did it himself, that recorded the whole thing. There's the evidence, there's the before and after.
Right.
And, they can lie too.
Here's my
but
receipts, too.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
it's like that
Right,
selling
right.
Tampa thing. You know all those houses?
Dude,
They weren't
so
even
fake.
listed, dude.
That is so fake.
weren't even
listed. I could see the main tutorial the trailers for it felt fake. Like it just
they
made no
were.
sense. Yeah.
It's great.
All right. Well,
Anyway,
we are
Suits is
we are a real estate show. So let's
Yeah.
go ahead and get right into the rates, guys, as always. And it looks like we spiked up a little bit, Frank.
I think we did. So good and bad news. Last Thursday, CPI index came out. Inflation was worse. So that's why you saw rates. We jumped up like a half a point. Good news is that yesterday and today, they have come back a little bit. Here's what's scary, guys. Carlos, I'm an ultimate optimist. I still believe rates are coming down before the election. But when you look at economic data right now and what some people are saying, it is a little scary because they are talking about we could continue on an increasing rate trend even through the election. And some people are saying we could be in the mid 8s. And if we think back now, I'm not old enough to remember, neither's Lee, neither's anybody in this room, but it was the Carter administration that had inflation at the same level that we have now. And it was after the Carter administration that the rates went up into the teens. When we talked to our parents about 15% rates and things like that, and the refi boom didn't occur until late 90s, right? So it could be scary. Now, good and bad, you ready? I think people are getting used to the rates, right? Nobody wants to see them get higher, but it's been 2.5 years. You're going to have to buy. It's still cheaper to buy. You're going to have to move. You still have babies. You still upsize and downsize. So inevitably, it is what it is. Good news is rates are not at 7.9. You can still lock. We locked 6.875 this morning. So
that's great.
wholesale lenders can still get way lower. Don't listen to Google.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I heard a client this week just say, "Oh, I'll just wait for the rates to come down." And it's like, so what are you going to do in the meantime?
Yeah.
You're just going to
See
keep
it a year
renting?
and a half.
I know I'm going to pay 100% interest on my rental.
Right.
Because I don't want to pay 8.
It's just got, again, home buying, future
crazy
investment.
is-
Where are you going to live? You got to pay for living, right?
Yeah.
In Davis Island, now again, that's premium.
Yeah.
But in January, it was around, medium was about 900,000. February, 1.6 million.
Yeah.
Literally doubled the house in a month. So if you wait, you're
So
paying
what's
more
our
for
what's
that
our
home
favorite saying?
thing.
Marry the house, date the rate. Marry the house, date the rate. House prices will go up no matter what happens with supply and demand. You can always refi.
That's right. My man, any thoughts on this race? Since you're here already, anything that you can,
can we
bring
sue?
to the table? Can we do something about this as the people of the United States?
Anyone you want. The issue becomes
Will you win?
How much money do you want to throw out and never get back?
How many people do I need to put together? Let's just say that.
I just had somebody talk to me about defamation. I'm like, okay, cool. If you're going to sue somebody for something like that, you're going to pay the money up front. You're spending 10 grand on a lawsuit, and you're suing someone who you're getting nothing back from. But it's the same dynamic here, right? Like we were talking the other day,
On
2
the radio
days ago,
show.
yeah, and I was like, I locked in. I paid down my interest rate, right? Like I paid, but I did it in the right way, where it wasn't like it's 8% and I bought it down to 7. Like I waited till we could refinance, then bought down again. Like there were dynamics to it, and that's what I tried to do, and it made sense for me. But I got in 2019, right?
I bet
Right
you
in the
got you
time.
probably got in the 2s, didn't you?
I am down at 2.8 or 9 or something.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's so cool.
yeah.
Which it's hard for guys like you to want to move or to do anything. That is a
not going
major.
anywhere.
He's like, I'm not. Have you asked your wife that?
Well, yes, yeah. We have a death clause. We're dying in the house right now.
Can we
it's
get people
fine.
to sign those?
Yeah.
All right, let's get it. Let's
That's your
get into
problem.
this situation right here. So we're gonna be talking a little bit about millennial search. Just if you don't know, millennials have become the number one buying generation as of right now, according to the National Association of Realtors, which they're getting sued.
Shocking.
So let's talk a little bit about that. First, what do you guys think about this? Obviously, I feel like the age factor is gonna help the millennials. We're probably, I'm a millennial. We're probably in in the right time frame to be buying more houses right now. So that makes sense. Baby boomers are getting a little bit older. Are you a baby boomer, Frank?
I was born in 79. What am I?
Right.
I think, am I a Gen
Z?
Z, right? Is that what I am?
I don't know what the silent generation is.
Somebody research this. Okay, hold on. I'll do it real quick. What? Oh, no, you got it right here. Bo's got it. If you're born in 79, what are you? I have no idea. I mean, I had
in something.
Here we go. Baby boomers born 46 through 64.
Oh, I'm X.
The war was over. So you're Generation X. Then we got the Y.
I'm
born
a Y.
80 to 94. I guess I'm a Y too because I was born in 89.
Dude, I'm like an XY.
But this is just one chart. I've been lumped into every one of these.
Right, but I don't
you
see
define it.
millennial in here. So what do they mean by millennial? Millennial will be 2000 and up, right?
That I think
2010?
look, it must be like a pronoun thing. Generation Alpha. Somebody got mad at the word millennial and they go, no, we're Generation Alpha. You know, hey, F you, dude. I was born before you. You can't be Alpha.
Yeah, you can't be first.
No, you could be like Zeta. All right, like.
But what I do see in this graph, though, is that, people are, at least the new generations coming in, they're definitely struggling to buy, right, Frank? I mean,
Yeah.
the newer generations, I don't want to say that, there's nobody hustling out there enough or something like that, but
There's nobody
basically,
hustling out there.
Yeah, we gotta. We do know that the schools have not helped
No.
in terms of teaching our kids how to make money in this world, how to grow in this world, which is already not easy. I know everything that I've learned was definitely from outside the school. I don't even
Well, it has to be
the
your
economy
parents.
class, right? And my parents.
Yeah, the schools do not. We talked about that last night with a financial planner and another like investor guy. It's almost like it's a conspiracy. The schools don't want people to understand interest, compounding, investing, checkbooks. Why? Because it holds them down. Because then the rich get to stay rich and richer, and it doesn't allow people to come up from poverty.
They've never taught it though.
Never
It's
have.
not like it's a new thing where they just stopped teaching how to make money they've never took a focus on how to actually advance. Like you can go to business school and things like that, but you've got to specialize and get in there and pay for
I
the
think
courses.
like if you literally make one class just to, I don't know, business success, whatever you want to call it, the main thing, just credit, buy a house as soon as you can, those little things, and just hustle skills.
Just
Like,
interest.
You got to work
credit
for
cards.
things,
Why
right?
not to run up your credit cards and have
Right.
30% interest that you can't get out of? How about
Right, absolutely. All right, so what do you think about this NAR situation? What do you think is going on there?
that? Are you familiar with that? The
situation?
NAR lawsuit?
No, what is it?
Yeah, I don't know if he would be most
Right,
real
'cause
estate attorney.
you're right.
It's where the National Association of Realtors basically lost a settlement lawsuit having to do with buyer agent commissions. Have you heard anything about that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
But I'll talk about anything. So keep going and I'll chime in.
Well, basically, NAR has lost this settlement because the sellers did not want to pay buyer's commission.
Got it.
My understanding from it is like I have no idea why they would lose because the sellers are never obligated to sign a contract that offers that.
Right.
So I was confused by it.
Is it a standardization though? Is it something that was just being put into the agreements off the bat, even without? Because you're right. You can contract
some agents could.
Okay.
Some agents would. Let me just put it that way. Some agents would definitely put things into the contract or not put things into the contract, but would not explain the contract to the clients, maybe just have them sign it. But it's their obligation or the client's obligation to read through the contract. I mean, when I'm doing it, I go through the contract with the client so that they're not asking me questions later because I know they're going to ask the questions later.
Right.
And it seems like in this case specifically, the sellers found out that they had to pay buyer commission after they received the contract or after they signed the contract with the buyers.
Right.
Which is,
Here's what happens in these, because this sounds.
if you don't mind putting the microphone just a little bit closer.
Yeah, here's what happens a lot. There's a difference between a sophisticated and an unsophisticated individual, right?
Okay.
When you enter into contracts, right? An example would be like an example I had. If you own a trucking company and you opt out of certain insurance coverages, you're sophisticated. You own this company. You deal with insurance every week, month, day, year.
Yeah.
You've made that call. Versus someone who has no knowledge or like advanced understanding of what that field is.
Yep, like I said, teacher.
Right, right. So you end up in these scenarios where the courts sit there and say, well, just like when you say, I click OK on your app, whatever the new app is, where I accept all these terms and conditions. Most courts have said, if there's a legitimate legal challenge, like who really reads that? There's a cultural, like, we just check and that's okay and we just move on. Those things come into play in those lawsuits a lot. So knowledge level, sophistication, how often you work with the contracts, I have a hunch was a big part of it.
Yeah. I agree with you. Sophisticated, unsophisticated. I mean, we believe that the lawsuit is basically frivolous.
I just feel like
It could be.
why not sue the agent or the brokerage? Instead, they used it as a
created a class action lawsuit and basically went after every major real estate company in the country, in a sense, trying to get the rules changed, but the rule never needed to be changed,
right?
Because you're not forcing somebody to pay a buyer's agent commission. You're negotiating the commission on the deal.
Right.
Well, my guess is because there were so many. I mean, this is a $418 million agreement, it looks like.
Yeah.
So there were so many, they just said, we're not fighting this in 50 jurisdictions or 100 jurisdictions. Right. And they came to a settlement. But it looks like it was just a settlement. Right?
It was a settlement.
Right.
But
So,
there's
which
some who
means
held
there's
out.
still something else that will come from it, right?
Yeah, some companies held out. A lot of the big ones settled, but then there was holdouts that are still fighting it from what I understand.
And that might be the case, but NAR settles. So they settle, and I mean, however it played out, that's what they...
That's the problem, because that's the organization that represents every realtor in the country.
Right.
And Carlos and I are like, okay, so what are you getting from NAR if NAR backed down against the biggest lawsuit that's ever come against agents in history? So,
well, they probably did a calculation, right? Like, I don't think this is precedent. I don't think it sits there and says, this has changed forever. I just think they settled whatever the
amount was.
Right.
So what he said is huge.
Right.
And that's what we all agree on. It's not precedent. You can still pay a buyer's agent commission.
Right.
The seller.
Right.
They just changed a couple rules about you listing the commission on the MLS.
Right.
So, again, my opinion, I think it's a nothing burger. I don't think anything's really going to change when it goes into effect in
there's
July.
no case law here. It's not like the courts made a finding, a jury had a verdict. Like, they just said, we're settling this. And you got to remember, they're calculating in litigation costs. How many lawyers do you need? How many lawyers do you need across how many areas, and how much you paying? And then some you'll win, some you'll lose. They just did a big equation probably and said, look, it's cheaper to do this than fight every one of these out.
That's probably the best explanation I've heard.
and here's the best part.
so
It's coming from a
simple,
guy
too, like,
who
you're right.
hasn't even read it. He's given us
It's just like, this is why they did it. You know, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Okay. Well, let's get into the good stuff here.
Yeah,
So,
squatters.
Squatters, right? We've been talking in this program probably about 3 or 4 episodes about different squatter situation. I lived through some myself. I had an attorney involved through it. I also had a situation with a flipper. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to play a video here from an illegal immigrant that is basically talking. I'll traduce a little bit. You don't speak Spanish, right?
Nope.
Yeah. I'll traduce for the audience as well. We've already played this video for our audience, but basically, take a look at what happened here. Then we're going to talk about what Desantis did because of this video. I don't know if you've seen it. And then we'll go from there and ask you some questions on that.
Yes, sir.
So here we go. My people, I thought about invading a home in the United States. Now that I know that there's a law that says that if a house is not inhabited, we can seize it. Copy here in the United States also applies the land invasion law. And I think this is going to be my next business. Invading abandoned homes. Since I've looked for some codes with my African-American friends that have told me that they have taken over 7 houses. And this is why, my people, we got to look for the good stuff. And the good stuff is invading homes right now. Since we're in the streets, it's the only way that we have to not live on the streets and not be a public burden. Capiche? The law states that the houses that are empty or in bad, that look bad, we can get in, repair it, and we can even sell it and get credit. What do you guys say about this? So first I want to say, I know you guys will probably be reading the subtitles. Some of the subtitles were a little bit,
wrong.
They were soft. They were trying to soften up what he said.
Gotcha.
Believe me, what he said, the way he said it, it's a lot worse than when you read the subtitles, which is why I like to translate a little bit, because sometimes we get lost in translation.
And I appreciate
a little
you
bit.
doing that. He was intense.
Yeah.
They softened.
He wasn't a nice guy.
Yeah.
he wasn't. So then right after this, I remember seeing this and just feeling like, when are we going to take charge of this? When is this going to happen? Me and Frank started talking about it, and all of a sudden, Desantis passes the squatter law, which I'm going to look for right now.
Yeah, it's House Bill 216.
Right. You know about it?
Yep.
Please talk on it, please.
So the beauty here, what DeSantis did, and I think this is, the governor made a really good call with this. We already had relatively good, comparative to other parts of the country, we had good landlord-tenant law that protects the landlord to an extent. It gives protections to the tenants. But in this scenario, what they did is they removed judgment calls by law enforcement.
Okay.
So sometimes a law enforcement officer will go out and be like, I'm not sure, right? Because it's on the border of criminal and civil.
Yeah.
And especially it's full civil, right? Like if you're the owner, you go out, they haven't paid you in a period of time, you haven't done taken legal steps to remove them through an eviction process or an unlawful detainer or something like that. You change those locks, you're getting arrested.
Right.
Right. Without the proper legal precedent. Here, what it's saying is if there was never a written agreement, so if you've never entered into a lease or any sort of contractual obligation to be there, and you've never been given permission to be there, anything of that effect, law enforcement will immediately remove it.
Yeah. So I had a situation in an efficiency once, which the guy presented himself really nicely. Within a month there, he was, shooting up drugs, not paying rent. I needed him out. And I didn't know how the law worked. This was back when I bought my first house in Town and Country.
Yeah, learning.
And I decided to just take everything. He left. I went in there and I took everything out. Luckily, a very nice cop came over and said, "Look, man, you need to put everything back, or I have to arrest you."
Right.
And he gave me the chance to put everything back into the efficiency that I was running for
And
him.
you're lucky you had a reasonable officer. Sometimes they'll make that call.
Sometimes they'll just make the call, which and that's what I like about, this particular cop, which in this situation, he kind of gave me a second chance because I could have just been arrested and have that on my record. And it's my
For
own
taking
house.
stuff out of your own house?
Right. But I kind of understand the law in that part to protect the tenants. So that was my first situation with something like this and dealing with it. Second was my first house that I had bought, which was a little bit prior to this one. I arrived to the place. The locks have already been changed. Suddenly the squatter comes in after I already go around the house, and I'm like, "What the heck is going on?" I saw the break-in in the back door and everything. The squatter gets there, and she asked me, "Who am I?" And I'm like, "Who are you? I'm the owner of this house." And she's like, "Oh, are you Carlos? Oh, you're the one that rented me the house." And I'm like, "No, I didn't. I don't know what you're talking about." And basically I called my attorney, which luckily I had just spoken to an attorney previously because we were going through a different case. And he had advised me, asked them if they can leave willingly. And from there, I also called the cops straight away. I had already had the experience from the efficiency, so I was a little more calmed down, but at the same time, this was the whole house now.
Right.
So she took over the whole house. The house was empty for about a month. I was trying to move back into it and rent my Town and Country house. And it was just a big, disappointment to walk in there, see this happen, boxes of hers everywhere. And in this moment, my anger kind of got the best of me a little bit. And I almost, in my feelings, I wanted, to punch this lady a little bit. I've never heard a woman in my whole life.
That's great.
I didn't.
Right.
I really wanted to for a second. My best friend was there. He's like, "Hey, dude, just calm down." I called the attorney. I was able, but I kept thinking, man, if I would have lost it, what would have happened? And then Frank asked me, "Well, what would have happened if you had your gun and this person comes in and
He always asks that question.
I did.
Every time.
I did.
And
I wanted to
that
shoot
is-
him on the radio.
That is such a great question because at the end of the day, like, it's true. You're in my property. You invaded the property. And in this particular case, I asked her for the lease. She didn't have it with her. So I could tell she was lying. When the cop got there, he had to give her time to go get the lease just because out of her mouth, she said that she had one.
Right.
So we had to wait 24 hours so that she could show the lease, which gave her plenty of time to make one up.
Of course.
So what do you think about that? If I would have had a gun and shot her, which I probably wouldn't have.
See,
but,
he wants to shoot her too.
But
Everybody-
after Frank asked that, I'm
you
like,
guys-
wait a second.
Yeah. So here's what happens. You go to prison.
Okay.
And here's why, right? You can act in self-defense, right? And there's something called the Castle Doctrine, right? Which has been kind of codified into our stand your ground and self-defense laws.
Okay.
All right. So that all exists. The issue that you run into is you can't use disproportional force, right? If you walk in and someone's in your house, you can immediately pull a gun out. That's your house. You have no duty to retreat. You have every right to defend yourself, right? And stand your ground. The issue becomes, what do you do next, right? Once you assess, like the example I use, if they're sitting there eating ice cream, like, sorry, you can't shoot them. You can't hurt them like that. You can call the police. You can hold them at gunpoint while police come. Because again, you're in your residence and they've violated your castle, right? And you can be in fear reasonably. Anyone would be. And you can hold them in that scenario. But if you use that gun and if they're not running at you, they don't have a knife, there's no weapon. You know, the example I use with Frank is if he slaps me because I was so much better looking than him,
Dang it.
right? And then I just shoot him. That's not a proportional use of force.
Okay.
And you're going to be arrested and charged with attempted murder, depending on what the outcome of that is, right?
So you're telling me if we get into an argument and that lady slapped me and I pull my gun out and
you
shoot her,
you're going to have problems.
but she slapped me.
Great.
Isn't that defense?
So it's proportional force. Did she use deadly force against you?
Deadly force.
Right.
So it has to be deadly force for it to be called.
Now, you can hit her back. You can defend yourself.
Right.
But if she slaps you and you shoot her, I'm not saying you can't win a self-defense argument.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying there's not a potential stand your ground depending on certain facts as they flesh out.
Well, if she had
What I'm
something in her
saying, though,
hand or something like that.
different animal.
Right.
But what I'm saying, like I saw something in the hand. If
Yeah.
like those are different scenarios.
Yeah.
But if it's just she slapped you and you shot her,
Yeah.
you're going to have problems.
Yeah.
But you can pull the gun. That's the part I
Right.
like.
You
It's,
can
it's your
defend yourself.
castle.
Right.
You can, I mean, how many people are going to not back
Run.
down if you go
Yeah.
like this?
Right.
You know?
Right. It's a scare. I mean, look, you walk into your house, someone's there. The immediate violation of everything that you hold like dear
Right.
and
Sacred,
so,
yeah.
and what's going on. I don't know what's happening. I don't know. You can immediately defend yourself and pull that gun to make sure you're safe. But the next steps are really important.
Yeah.
And they can result in you being absolutely legally in the correct, right, or you going to prison.
What if I pull my gun out, then she pulls a gun out or a knife out?
Different animal.
Then I can shoot her.
You better
if you
shoot
are
her.
now there is a legitimate risk, or excuse me, a legitimate threat of deadly force.
Yep.
Once it escalates that, if there's a knife, stabbing is a deadly force.
Yeah.
Period. Right? There's a baseball bat, blunt force trauma to the head is potentially deadly force. But again, there's got to be like if the ice cream's in their hand when the police get there, that's a problem.
She picks up a brick from the ground. She's getting shot.
Right. I mean, there was just an article the other day. A guy, he got arrested for murder. He shot somebody in his driveway. It was an Uber driver who went to the wrong address, and he thought she was there to scam him and freaked out and shot her. That's the exact argument I'm making. Like, you don't just get to kill someone.
I saw that. He's going to jail.
Oh, he's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And that would happen to you too, right? Again, breaking into the house, different animal, something in the hand, they're coming at you, threats are made, they're all different.
Yeah.
But if you pull the gun like, my bad, sorry.
Right.
Let them walk out. Call the police. Do not.
Yeah. Don't shoot him in the back.
Don't give the government the opportunity to charge you
Shut me
something.
down. Yeah.
Like that's a bad. You calling me saying like, here's what happened. I'm like, we're gonna have a fight, and you're fighting for your life, and you might win. I might win your trial, but you're gonna be going because then you have what's called 10-20 life enhancements. When a firearm is used in the commission of a felony, 10-year min-man, 20-year min-man, there's 25-year min-mans, and there's mandatory lives, depending on what happens. So guns, we're all for the open, the carrying, concealed weapon carry, all the laws have changed, that's all great. But if you use them poorly or make a bad call, there's consequences.
Yeah. Completely understand.
It's scary because
So-
it's your house.
So
Again, you can pull the gun, Frank. You can do it.
Yes.
It's
Oh, I'm gonna.
Yeah. Yes. You'll pull several guns. I know they're coming out. But
Yeah.
the point is,
Frank has an arsenal.
right. Oh,
No,
My bad, Frank. I didn't mean to snitch you out
My
here.
problem is which gun?
he's gonna make it through the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
At least the first couple years.
Good.
So what's different now? Now that we have this law, let's say same situation happens to
On
me.
the squatters' rights.
Yes. I call the police. What happens now?
So here's the beauty. Now, when you call the police, you'll basically say, hey, look, you'll fill out paperwork, you'll sign saying there is no agreement in place.
Right.
Because what happened to you on that fraudulent scenario, they've also created criminal consequences for squatters. So if they give a fake or false document, it's immediately a crime.
How would they be able to prove that?
Yeah, that's
You're
my
gonna
question.
Say, that's the criminal question. You're going to say, I'm the owner. There is no agreement. They are lying. It will likely end up in a criminal prosecution, and then they've got to prove this wasn't
So
fake.
that's the difference.
Right. They're going to be accused, right? And the government's going to say, here's the owner. You're going to say, I have never. Here's my email record.
Yeah.
I don't know this
Right.
person. I never did anything.
Here's my
with them.
real signature.
Right. Now, this creates wrinkles. Let's say there's a third party who is faking owning that,
We talked
rents it
about
out.
this.
That's a different scenario. Then there's a good faith scenario on the person in the house. And then you're looking at a formal eviction. Okay. Because they're not lying. They have paperwork saying, look, this person said X. It's not you. It could go different ways. That could flush out, but that's different than I'm lying, I'm in there. And
Does it help in this particular case? This lady had a really bad criminal record. Like she had records of doing this prior.
The point I was making, the beauty of this is it's to simplify for law enforcement what to do. It's to say, hey, look, nothing in writing. I've told them to leave and they've never had permission to use this. That's it. They're out. Yeah. Period. End of story. So that makes it easier for law enforcement. And those things make credibility. That's what credibility is, right? Like, look at her record. I've never met her. I am the owner. I am swearing to you. I'll sign it under oath. And I'm telling you now, they're going to be removed.
Yeah.
And that gives law enforcement that ability. You can subject yourself if you're the owner and you're lying about having the lease. Not that we would ever do that, but if that's the case, you're now looking at criminal prosecution as well.
Yeah.
They also, just to be clear, they have upped the ante. If you are in that residence without permission and you cause more than $1,000 in damage, now it's a second-degree felony.
Oh, wow.
15-year cap. Let's say you don't own it at all and you're doing what we were talking about. You're pretending to have ownership of it and you're leasing it out. First-degree felony. Punishable up to 30 years in prison. Not that you're getting that, but those are your caps now. Damn. So they are going after this hard. That's, you got to remember, like when someone gets hit with that and they're like, I didn't even know this was like a felony. And you're looking at a 15-year cap and no one's happy with you and they're trying to light you up. It's a deterrence.
So in other words, we need to thank this guy for what he did.
I'll send him a thank you note in Florida prison because that's where he is right now.
I just, I've been waiting for this. Right. I've been through the situations that I just told you and some of my clients going through it. And luckily I had the experience to involve an attorney right away, get, the situation under control as soon as possible. I mean, I had a client that had a squatter at their house for 8 years. Do you know this client was crying after I got the squatter out?
That's wild.
And in that case, the squatter actually has some type of rights to keep the property because they've been paying taxes and done a bunch of stuff. So
that's an adverse possession. I mean,
right.
You're talking years. That's a different animal. If you're on top of, Frank and I were talking about like neighbors. If you're at a property that's more rural, you're not there very often. Have people check, make sure no one's there.
I had a guy go to my property today
put a
after your
camera on
freaking
it.
thing.
Really?
Literally, my buddy just called me an hour ago. He's like, "We're all good, man. I didn't have to shoot anybody."
Yeah.
I was like,
hey, good.
Yeah.
But that's adverse possession. There are adverse possession statutes in every state because the reality is I'm here for 10 years and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But that's not, the squatters isn't about that. The squatters, somebody's just moved in and is jumping at. The squatter stuff after 8 years, they're not squatters anymore. I mean, you could call them that, but you're in different legal territory.
I think they own.
Right.
Yeah. As far as do you know if any other states have done anything in terms of the squatter law?
I know that, I know out west they're not doing any of that because the problem, this was a direct reaction to some of the more liberal leaning states as far as the rights they've given to individuals when they get into the houses and you can't get rid of them. Mm-hmm. This was a direct reaction to that. I think this is probably one of the quickest turnaround removals in the country, if not the fastest.
Right. God bless DeSantis.
Yeah, absolutely. Why is it that he's able to do that faster than certain other people? It feels like DeSantis jumps on the gun a lot faster. Is it because he wants to and he can do it, or
the legislature backs his place? They're aligned, right? Yeah. When you have adverse parties, a governor and the Senate and the House, the legislative component, they're adverse and not in alignment. You're not getting anything passed. It's just like the federal government, right? You got like a Republican Congress and a Democratic president, or vice versa, where nothing passes. It's the same concept. Here, everyone is relatively aligned politically, and they're able to move very quickly on the legislation they want to get through.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That is so cool, man.
Different
I really appreciate you being here, man. Last thing here. So another law that was passed is the social media situation with the kids. Are you familiar with this one?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, if you're under 14, you should not have social media. I remember being in high school, having MySpace, then it went into Facebook.
Right.
That was a lot of fun. We could show the top 10 friends and all that, cool stuff, which now that you look at it, it's like, man, how messed up is that? Like
It's terrible.
Yeah, it was really creating a lot of separations between the kids, but at the time it felt kind of cool to be able to show that off, customize your page, etc. So now we have years of evidence of what social media has done to our generation. What's it doing to the next
Well, it's
generation?
more insidious now than it was then. Too.
Right,
So,
Totally.
like, you can't escape.
It wasn't just
because of the
chat
capture,
rooms.
the capture of data, which is very important for the companies and trying to promote certain
Especially with
things.
AI and how they
Yeah.
can use your voice and your image and your likeness, and there's way too much out there, too much
Right.
data.
Well, the
So-
cyberbullying too is horrible. Like the sexual issues with kids and not understanding a video and a photo is forever, and all those
Yeah.
things. It just wasn't like that when I was born in '82, so it was a different animal.
Yeah.
Right. So this right here is only in Florida right now, or is it
Right.
Okay.
It's been this almost identical law has been passed in I want to say 3 other states right now.
Okay.
It's all been appealed federally, and it's all on hold.
Okay.
Say
Because-
what? People are who's appealing this?
So there are
Sickos?
adverse groups that say no, you're infringing on rights, and whether they believe it or they just have this political stance or philosophical stance, but they're all on appeal, and they've all been suspended pending the outcome of the federal appeal or state appeal. Right. So I mean, there's likely going to be an appeal to this. The issue. Here's what I don't understand about it. I think it's fine. I'm all for limiting social media for kids. Here it's under 14, you can't. 15, 16, parents have authority on whether
Right.
you can or not. I don't know the consequence. So in the Senate bill, reading through it, like, I don't know, is it a criminal consequence if this is violated? Who's going to be prosecuted? Is it a civil consequence if it's violated? Who's liable or who? I don't know how this is going to
Yeah,
flesh out.
because a 14-year-old doesn't have a driver's license to present to. What are they going to ask for? His birth certificate to
Right.
show?
So how do you do it? And you can lie.
or the parents
like,
liable?
I'm born 3 years earlier.
Right, of course.
Right. But and that's the issue. What's the liability? What's the consequence? I don't know what this is going to do. And I think that's a big part of the appeals of like, okay, you said this is law, but what?
Yeah, what do you do?
Generally, if you violate law, there's a consequence, whether it's a civil ordinance or
You got to
it's a
go to your
criminal.
room.
Right. Fine. So who's coming to tell you to go to your room, right?
Uncle Sam.
Right. And we love when the government comes to our house. So, I mean, that's the question.
Ooh, God, you brought up a good point.
Yeah. So in terms of the, okay, I'm a YouTuber, right? We're doing this episode on YouTube right now live. I thought about ways I like to involve my kids in business at an early age. I only have 2 kids, but if there's something,
Good. That's plenty. I have to.
I don't know, man. I'm 4, 5, 6, 7. If God allows, I really am.
Oh,
man.
he will.
I will. Well, we've been trying, Frank. Let me just say that.
It's the best part.
So yeah, that is the best part. So basically, I like to involve my kids in business early, and the easiest business that I can think about is YouTubing. You look at Ryan, you look at all the YouTubes that they watch, and how we have to be careful what they're watching, and a lot of it always makes me think as a as a businessman or somebody that likes cameras in this type of industry. I'm like, man, Sander already plays video games. Be nice to just have a YouTuber playing video games. These kids are making millions of dollars. And I wish they had a father role involved, but in this case, for example, if I want to start a YouTube channel with my son right now, which is actually something that I'm working on, how would this law affect me? If I agree with it, my son agrees with it.
You're fine to do it.
Right.
You would have your own account.
Right.
What this prevents is that child from having their own account.
Can't do it without you.
Okay, so
Right.
I would create
You
the
have your
account
adult
under.
account. Yeah, nothing
Okay.
says kids can't be on social media on their parents' accounts.
That's
like,
the key.
I could post
So can I
videos
name
and
it?
photos.
Can I name it Sanders Video Game World or something like that, and be in charge of the account, even though it's my son's name?
Based on this, it's your account.
Okay.
You're the one registering the account.
Got it.
So as long as the parent is in control in that scenario, what this is saying is they can't have their own account under 14. They can at 15 and 16 with your permission.
Right.
But that's not what that is. That you're like, Ryan's World or whatever the stuff is. Like,
Yeah.
that's the parent's account. They're the ones making the money.
Right.
Right. And they're registering and they're using the child.
That's what you want to do anyway.
Right. I mean,
God intended.
Yeah,
to me,
exactly.
it's important that I ask my child, do you even want to do this? But obviously, they're kids. What do they know, right?
Right.
Just
Yeah.
like
Does it make you happy?
Listen,
Yeah,
I'll tell you this,
do it.
Carlos. My daughter wanted to do it, and she would have been perfect for it. She wanted a YouTube channel that when she was like 6 and 7. Now she's 12. I regret very
Not doing
strongly because I think that would have been a really good thing for her, the way the way her personality is. So do it.
Right.
Just do it, and you never know. Spend a little time on it. I didn't put the time in to do it, and I completely regret it.
Yeah, I mean, I know the amount of time that I spent in the music world and everything that I did has taught me so many things today, right? So I think it's important for me personally to get them ahead, of editing, understanding how video works, get afraid of the camera. You know, that way when somebody ever
teach her a
pulls it,
lot.
right. But I do, I do want to respect their rights because a lot of parents, I do feel like maybe doing this just out of, making money out of their kids, which is possibly one of the reasons why they came out with this, right?
No, I don't think it was about that. I think it was more about the kids being unmonitored and the exposures and the bullying
Predators.
and the sexual dynamics that come into play. I mean, you would be amazed.
Which has a lot more to do with Instagram, Facebook, and
Correct.
yeah.
I don't think it
there's
was
a lot
about exploitation of the parents.
I think there's a lot of parents that don't pay attention to their kids, and it's hard, right? And so as much as I don't like government control and government interference, I'm sorry, there's a lot of uninvolved parents, and sometimes we need to step up and be like, okay, you guys aren't paying attention. Let's stop this. Because let's be real, under 14, do they really need it? No. Like I look at it, it's actually consumed. My daughter does not have TikTok, but she uses my wife's phone, and that crap has consumed her for the last 3 years, right? From like 9 to 12. And I get home, she's like, instead of like, hey dad, I won this math award. It's like, hey dad, watch this. Dun, 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 dance around. And I'm like, stop that shit. I'm like, I'm sorry, honey. Daddy's not impressed by that.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's this horrible line. My kids are 9 and 7, and I'm terrified because I'm like, nope.
yeah, don't let it happen.
You're not. We got them watches just now.
Yeah.
For where they can call us and text us and things like that.
Okay.
But I'm not giving them phones for a really long time. And the social media, no way. And I don't want to make them outcasts. I don't want to ostracize them from their peers.
It's either that or they grow up too fast and learn shit you don't want them to learn.
Right.
Well,
So I'll take that risk over. Oh, you learned about that today.
Oh yeah. And when she twerks her little booty, and you're like,
Right. It's
Where'd you learn
scary.
that?
It's a hard balance.
didn't learn it at my
Well,
house.
to me, it's about what you said specifically. I mean, I've done research on this. China is in charge of TikTok through somebody that lives here, right? You guys are familiar with this?
Yeah.
And it seems like they're pushing for more Americans to do dumb videos so that we look worse as a country.
It's called blackmail too.
Compared to the things that they're doing. Like if you look at their TikToks, because they all have accounts too.
Yeah.
But they're pushing scientists, doctors, important type of professions that will keep the
They're
country
pushing STEM, and
in
we're pushing
better places.
something else.
Right.
I read a great article and it scared the hell out of me. And it really did, even to this day. It's been 4 or 5 years. It was about Silicon Valley and the high schools and the middle schools, all the executives and the startups where they're sending their kids. These high schools removed electronics. It was paper.
What?
It was pencil. It was notebooks, and it was hardbook. And it was a really great article. And they're like, the owners and the stars and the purveyors of these online social media exposures for these kids remove it from their kids because they knew internally how horrible it was. And you see Zuckerberg going and apologizing, sorry. Everyone's known for a really long time this is bad for kids. And you're telling me that in Silicon Valley, the most prestigious schools there removed electronics.
Because they know it's more addictive than most drugs.
Right. So that to me was a really, when you want to know what someone thinks, look what they're doing with their own kids. Because that's the best they can do for them. That scared the shit out of me.
What's the guy that created Apple? I forgot his name.
Steve Jobs.
He never gave his kid an iPad.
Nope.
He never gave his kid an iPhone until they were, I think, 18.
Adults. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, he didn't do it. They bought it themselves.
I had a case with a child psychologist, and they brought up a point. Sorry, I'll be real quick.
Go
They
ahead.
brought up a great point, and they were like, we sit there and we're like, well, for my 9-year-old, right, or whatever, I want them to focus on being able to drive through a school zone. And they're like, when they're 16, you worry about that. They're not. We worry about these things we don't want them to have X, Y, or Z because when they're adults, we want them to do that. That's not how kids' brains works. That's not how development works, right? And I think that's all very telling of we assign these values as adults to these kids that don't, their brains aren't there.
Not the same.
Anyway.
Dude, I love it.
I get it.
This has been a great show, man.
Yes, sir. All right. And that's everything, unless you guys want to share anything else.
I mean, hey, denmonpearlman.com.
That's right.
That's how we find Denmon, Pearlman.com. You shoot somebody, you make a mistake drinking, your wife really pisses you off and you want a new one, all kinds of things you guys can do
We
over
can
there.
help with so many of life's
I love
problems, like at any given time.
And my man, it was really a lot of fun interviewing
Yeah, it
you
was a
here.
pleasure.
Thank you so much for showing up here to the We the People Real Estate Podcast. Guys, make sure if you like this show, you subscribe, you share, you like. Guys, this is it. This concludes episode 12. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Lee Pearlman.
Have a
Alrighty.
great day, guys.
Let's
Vote
go.
for Nicole Pearlman.
That's right, Nicole
for
Pearlman.
judge.
Let's do it. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. This is We